everyone, I am Mary Joy Rivas. You can call me Joy or Joy, whatever you want. I am 19 years old and I currently live in Porok Mundalo, Unidad Caguait, Surigao del Sur. I have group mates. We are four in the group. And I am the first reporter, followed by Joanna Bicog, the second reporter, and also the third reporter is Charlie Bermudez, and the last reporter is Jezebel Ayan. And we are first-year students from Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in Mathematics.
Hi guys, I am Joanna Bascog Bicog. I am 18 years old and you can call me Jo for short. And I am currently living here at Porok Brotherhood Unidad Caguait, Surigao del Sur. And I am the second reporter.
Hi, I am Charlie B. Bermudez and I am 22 years old. I was born on April 26, 1999. And currently, I resides at Purok 7 Maabgub, Palo Alto, Lingig, Surigao del Sur.
Hi everyone, especially to your mom. I am Jezebel Ayad. I am 20 years old and I live in Bolhoon, San Miguel, Surigao del Sur, and I am the fourth reporter of our group.
For today's video, we were going to discuss about death penalty. With the collaboration and unity of our group, you could comprehend and you can conclude which would decide. Are you affirmative or against if ever the death penalty will be implemented in our country? Are you excited to join and listen for today's discussion? And wait, there's more. Don't blink your eye because you might miss every significant details of our discussion. So what are you waiting for? Let's get started. What is death penalty? Death penalty is also known as capital punishment. It is the execution of an offender sentenced to death after conviction by a court of law of a criminal offense, or a punishment given by a court of law for a very serious crimes. If convicted, they would face death penalty. When was death penalty started and who is the proponent of death penalty? The first established death penalty laws as far back as the 8th century before Christ in the Code of King Hammurabi of Babylon, which codified the death penalty for 25 different crimes. The history of death penalty in the Philippines. Death penalty was established in the Philippines in the most part of 1848 to 1987, which used to curtail the liberties, freedoms, and rights of the Filipino people. Death penalty in the Philippines represented a Republic Act number 7659, otherwise known as the Death Penalty Law.
Death penalty during Spanish period in the Philippines. Spanish colonizer uses death penalty as their penal system or their punishment, including execution. During this time, they used death penalty to execute people who exposed to rebellion and social unrest. They also used capital punishment that took various forms including burning, decapitation, or to cut off the head of a person, drowning, flaying, or to whip a person in a severe way, garrote, or to use a device to strangle a person, shooting and stabbing. During the Spanish period, it recorded the total death sentences of 1,703 with 46 actual executions. In addition, during this time, the Filipino who were meted the death penalty include Magat Salamat. Magat Salamat is a dato who is against the Spaniards' regime. And because of that, he failed a rebellion. But he was but the plot was revealed by De Vera. And because of that, he is executed through hanging. And the native clergies Gomez Burgos and Zamora who were executed through garrote because of triason. And Victor Jose Rizal, who executed on December 30, 1896 because of his work Noli Me Tangere that criticized the Spaniards' political governance and the clergy, and El Filibusterismo that described the social cancer that colonization wrote. All of them are now enshrined as heroes because they got executed as they fight justice and freedom of their motherland. Death penalty during American period. The American colonizers adapt most of the provisions under the Código Penal of 1848 to retain the death penalty. During this time, all the Código Penal was revised in 1932. Crimes such as treason, parricide, piracy, kidnapping, murder, rape, and robbery with homicide were considered capital offenses which were warranted by the death penalty. During this time, Macario Sakay was one of those sentenced to die for leading a group. He was sentenced to die by public hanging. In this time, the capital punishment continued to be an integral part of pacification process in the country.
Death penalty during Marcos years or in the presidency of Ferdinand Marcos. During the time of President Ferdinand Marcos, death penalty is present. Deterrence become the official justification for the imposition of the death penalty. So during his time as a president of the Philippines, deterrence is their way to impose death penalty. Then similar to the imposition of capital punishment, during the colonial periods, the death penalty during the Marcos regime was imposed to quell rebellion and social unrest. So the same through with the colonial periods, the death penalty was imposed to quell rebellion and any other social unrest because those time there are many people who are against the government and who are start to rebel against the government. So in order to conquer or quell those rebellion, the government imposed death penalty. Then some crimes which were made punishable by death through laws and decrees during the Marcos period were subversion, possession of firearms, arson, hijacking, embezzlement, drug-related offenses, unlawful possession of firearms, illegal fishing, and cattle rustling. So those are the crimes during the time of President Ferdinand Marcos which were convicted through death penalty. So we are familiar with the possession of firearms. When we see the possession of firearms, the unlawful way of using any arms or guns. And also, we are familiar with arson. This is referring to burning of the house or the property of someone. And then, we have drug-related offenses about the drug issues, which is, drug is a very rampant issue also in the Philippines. Another is illegal fishing. So, in the illegal fishing, people use dynamite. So, those are considered as an illegal crimes that would be convicted through death penalty. So those are the instances during the death penalty in the time of our President Ferdinand Marcos. Then years passed, Philippines is the first country in the Asia to abolish death penalty under the 1987 Constitution. So during the time of the 1987 Constitution, Philippines is the first to abolish death penalty. And all death sentences were reduced to reclusion perpetua or life imprisonment. So, instead of imposing death penalty, they imposed reclusion perpetua or the life imprisonment. But it was reimposed during the administration of President Fidel Ramos to address the crossing rate in 1993. So, during the time of President Fidel V. Ramos, the death penalty also was again reimposed because the crossing rate has increased. So in order to minimize or in order to lessen the crime rate, the death penalty was reimposed. And to be abolished again in 2006 after then President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo signed a law reducing maximum punishment
to life imprisonment as it opposes human rights. So during the presidency and during the time of President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo in 2006, the death penalty was abolished because according to her, death penalty really opposes human rights. So, the question is, does death penalty violates human rights? The death penalty violates the most fundamental human right, the right to life. It is the ultimate, cruel, inhuman, and degrading punishment. Death penalty is discriminatory. It is often used against the most vulnerable in society, including the poor ethnic and religious minorities and the people with mental disabilities. Some governments use it to silence their opponents, where justice systems are unfair. The risk of executing an innocent person is very present. When the death penalty is carried, it is final. An innocent person may be released from prison for a crime they did not commit. So, death penalty really violates human right. Why? Because there are innocent people who are convicted through death penalty even though they don't have committed any mistake. And also death penalty is a very cruel or inhuman punishment. That is why it truly violates our human rights. Next is, why was death penalty banned? The court said that the death penalty was a violation of the Eighth Amendment prohibition against cruel and unlawful punishment. The court suggested that new laws might be acceptable if they provided clear standards for imposing death sentences. So as we all know, that death penalty truly violates human rights. That is why it is banned, especially in our country, the Philippines. Why? Because there are many innocent people who are convicted into death sentences even though they do not commit mistake or major crimes. That is why death penalty is banned in our country.
Okay. Now, I am going to discuss to you why did the death penalty start. Death penalty became a common response to a variety of crimes, including sexual assault, treason, and various military offenses. So, we all know in the past century, we all know that crimes and cases are already known, so are already common issues in our world. So, in able to stop this or to reduce, minimize this assault or crimes, the government implemented or developed death penalty to such person who committed crimes. So, they developed this death penalty. Why? What death penalty start because of many crimes that we already encounter in this world to be able to reduce these cases or crimes. So next, methods of death penalty executed in the Philippines. Until its first abolition in 1987, the country reverted to using death penalty by firing squad. So in 1987, the methods of death penalty in the Philippines is by firing squad. So after the reintroduction of the death penalty in 1993, the country switched to lethal injection as its sole method of execution. So while in 1987, the methods of death penalty in the Philippines is by firing squad, and when the 1993, after the reintroduction of the death penalty, the Philippines switched into lethal injection as a method of sole execution, so from firing a squad to lethal injection. In such issues, there are these common advantages and disadvantages. So, naadyo ni siya maintain. So, first, I'm going to discuss to you the advantages of death penalty. First, capital punishment is arguably the greatest deterrent to criminals and potential criminals. Second, heinous criminals' activities such as rape, treason, murder, terrorism, and etc. can be drastically reduced when the death penalty is practiced. So, when the death penalty is practiced, these such crimes, serious crimes, will be reduced because some of people will afraid to die to be punished by death penalty. Third is the capital punishments cuts down cost. And then the fourth, to the average person, the severest punishment on earth is the death penalty. Then those are the advantages of death penalty. Then the disadvantages of death penalty. First, it is a sin to kill. So as what Bible says in Exodus, or the one of the 10 commandments of God is thou shalt not kill. So it is a sin to kill. It is sin to kill. So this is one of the disadvantage of death penalty because you killing a person. Next, the death penalty is inhuman. So we have no rights to kill a people. So it is inhuman because we violated the rules or the rights of human to live, to the rights of human rights. The third is most of the methods used in carrying out the execution are crude and inhuman because the offender has to go through a lot of pain and suffering before eventually dying. So we all know when such person committed a crime and they punished by death penalty, they go through a lot of pain before dying. So it is inhuman. The death penalty is inhuman because we ato pag ipalisod ang tao adisa si mapatay. So that is one of the disadvantage. Then the fourth disadvantage is innocent people can end up being killed. So we all know some of us some people, especially the rich people, they're just going to give a money to the high person in our government just to kill innocent people to cover their crimes that they committed. So that is one of the disadvantage. Then the fifth is that sometimes certain crimes are committed on impulse. The sixth, death penalty clearly violates one of the fundamental and natural rights of every human being, which is the right to live. So as what I have said, death penalty is violated the fundamental of a person which is the right to live. Then the seven, certain crimes don't deserve the death penalty. So when a person committed crimes, it is death penalty is the answer of such crimes. So maybe because death penalty is what do we call this? Death penalty is road murag kuan siya, grabe ra kayo nga kuan punishment sa usa ka tawo kung makakommit siya og crime. So this is one of the disadvantage. Then the last some criminals regret their heinous crimes and repent while in prison. So these are the disadvantage of the death penalty.
In our group, we are against if ever there's an implementation of death penalty in our country. But this is just our own opinions. And besides, we have different perceptions about this topic and we have the right to speak out since we are citizens in this country. We are against because Death is not in anyone's hand, and most of all, God is the only one who can take our life. Furthermore, death penalty should not be implemented in Philippines because the judicial system is faulty and it is contrary to Catholic teachings. We have one solution and one recommendation. Solution: life imprisonment is a better option for a criminal to be punished. Recommendation: develop investigate skills in order to avoid misjudging one person. And that's the end of our discussion. Thank you and God bless us all.